You are the MP for Niagara Falls, correct?
That is correct. I represent the riding that has all 4 bridges in my riding.
So obviously this is a moving issue. There's information flow is still coming, but I got to ask you, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, the incident is extremely concerning. The images are shocking, in fact, and we're waiting to hear more. In fact, I'm waiting for government officials, CBSA, U.S. Customs, the FBI. They're all working on it, and we're waiting to hear more. And I really feel uncomfortable saying any more until we hear more information and more facts.
I'd ask, I mean, personally as a Torontonian, grew up, who's crossed many of the bridges, but the Rainbow Bridge in particular, is there anything particular about that bridge that you know about?
Well, that's one of the main border bridges that allows tourists to come into our community. We're a tourism community. And people don't realize when you grow up in Niagara, it's a binational region. It's a binational community. We all have friends and family on either side. So when something like this happens, it hurts all of us because we're that closely integrated as communities.
Do you see this? It is unclear at this point, as I ask it, whether it is a traffic accident or it's so we don't know. But either way, where I'm going with this question is confidence. It takes confidence for people to go through the measures of crossing the border. Mm-hmm. Do you, as a former tourism executive, do you see any problems on the Thanksgiving weekend with confidence in crossing the border and how that affects us?
No, I mean, we've got excellent officials on both the Canadian and the American side. They're doing their jobs, and that's exactly what happened when this incident occurred. They were at their posts doing their jobs.
But what I'm talking about is if somebody wanted to go to a Sabres game or somebody was going to come across the casino, do you see a confidence eroding from that?
Well, that's the concerning issue, right? I mean, when an incident like this happens and it's shown in the media and it's shown worldwide, it does have an impact on people's intentions to travel. I mean, we're just coming out of a pandemic, and our tourism economy in both sides is looking to recovery. And something like this does little to help.
Haven't heard about shutdowns on the QEW. It's for local residents to pay attention. Niagara Regional Police, Prime Minister is being briefed. We're learning more information. I know I've talked to the Prime Minister's office. He's working, and the government's working with American law enforcement, and hopefully have more information soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Miller, do you have a response to what the Toronto mayor has been calling for the federal government to open up the armouries to house refugees? Are you going to do that?
I think it's important to highlight that in order for us to do anything as a federal government, we do need a request for assistance from the Ontario government. We have been looking at a number of options in Toronto, but also the greater Toronto area to alleviate the pressure of asylum seekers, given the fact that winter has come and it's only going to get colder. The call is a little inconsistent with some of the internal discussions that we have been having with the city, so I think it's important for all of us to get our acts together and to be quite clear about exactly what the objective is, which is to get a roof over people's houses. The federal government has put an offer on the table, a financial offer on the table, as well as looked at Exhibition Place as a place that would be more suitable for people to get a shelter over their head. Again, that's work that's in progress, so I hesitate to speak a little more publicly on it. We have a good relationship with the mayor's office and want to continue to do so. But again, the priority is to focus on these people that aren't housed under the proper conditions. I'd say on another related note that we are close to having an understanding with the Peel region with respect to a reception centre. That is something that I hope that we can announce in the next couple days. In the case that is accepted, it would be a place where people would be welcome near the airport so that we have a better fashion and a better way of triaging and making sure that we're having a coordinated regional response to something that isn't going away quickly, but winter is also coming quickly, so there is some immediacy to it. But I guess in all cases we've put money on the table and we've looked at solutions with the affected mayors to make sure that we are having a coordinated response. But again, in order for the armories to be open, it would require a request for assistance from the Ontario government, which we haven't yet received.
How much have you put on the table? And should you get that request from the Ontario government, are you open to opening the armories?
Again, we'd have to consider what the request for assistance says specifically. The armories is not an ideal place to be housing these people. There are options that we have looked at internally, and we are understanding with the Mayor's office is that there were more viable options that they were willing to acknowledge and look at. And I won't speak publicly to the numbers just yet, but it's in the millions of dollars.
Monsieur Miller, la semaine passée, vous avez rencontré les ministres de l'immigration, je crois des provinces. Québec réclamait, vous avez envoyé une lettre concernant, il demande un remboursement de 460 millions pour l'accueil des réfugiés ukrainiens. Vous en avez parlé avec Mme Fréchette, j'imagine. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose qui est ressorti de ça?
Écoutez, moi ce que j'ai dit très clairement auparavant à la ministre Fréchette, c'est mettons nos cartes sur la table avec nos ministres des Finances respectifs. Je n'ai pas un 400 millions qui traîne ici et là, vous le savez très bien. C'est clair que le Québec a fait sa juste part en ce qui a trait à l'accueil des demandeurs d'asile. Il y a à certains niveaux, je leur en ai demandé de faire un effort supplémentaire. Mais c'est clair que c'est une discussion qui est à la fois partielle, malheureusement publique, mais je sais qu'ils en ont pris un fardeau très important. Je noterai aussi que sous l'accord Canada-Québec, on leur a déjà versé de l'argent, même à quelques occasions, de l'argent en trop que l'on ne leur a pas réclamé le repaiement. Alors, il y a une discussion qui est plus large que la simple échange de lettres qui existe.
C'est la facture totale de 470 millions qu'il y aurait seulement moins de 15 qui aurait été payé par le fédéral, si je ne m'abuse.
Ils associent deux affaires, là, mais puis ils en font un pourcentage. Je comprends le jeu. C'est un jeu qui est politique, mais mettons toutes nos cartes sur la table, puis disons-nous les vraies affaires, parce que le Québec, on les compense à juste titre sous les clauses pertinentes de l'accord. C'est une discussion qu'il faut avoir, puis ayons cette discussion avec nos ministres des Finances respectifs. J'ai pas 400 millions qui traînent pas ici, là.
Reduce immigration levels for refugees and for humanitarian immigrants in 2026 as the refugee situation globally has gotten much worse over the last few years. What was behind that decision?
Look, we work with a set of numbers. It isn't a question of reducing per se, but really having a discussion about the envelopes that we welcome people under, whether it's families, economic, or protected persons. That number, to the best of my knowledge, reflects a tailing off of some of the very significant commitments we've made with respect to Afghan refugees. And obviously, we examine and re-examine those numbers every year. We have made significant commitments. We will continue to make significant commitments. The world has acknowledged that we have made those commitments and are one of the top countries in the world in resettling people. Those do come at a cost. We have made some very important public policy decisions over the course of our government, starting with Syrian refugees and then Afghan refugees, and now welcoming folks from Ukraine. That comes at a cost, and I think that's an important cost for Canadians to realize, not only a financial one, which is significant, but the cost that this has on services, on the education system, on housing. But it's always one that we're willing to look at and re-examine as the exercise demands that we do every year.
Yeah, as the U.S. kind of stepped back, its sort of refugee resettlement, Canada really stepped up. Is that one of the reasons that Canada's now
hard to speculate on that? Really hard to speculate on that point in particular. But what it's more than speculation because it reflects the talks that I've had with my counterpart in Secretary Mayorkas. They clearly want Canada to step up in our role in resettling people and the pressure that America is facing on its southern border in a coordinated and concerted way. We now have an objective for March in welcoming 15,000 people from the Americas. But that is something that we expect to continue. So if there's any lesson from that is that the pressure will be sustained and continued, and we will have to adapt on the fly. I think it's just important for Canadians to realize that We have made very, very significant public policy commitments. Canadians would expect no less, but those have come with consequences, at times ones that haven't been fully thought through, and we certainly feel that pressure from provinces that at times randomly send us bills for things that they have and obviously have the jurisdiction to take care of, and the duty as human beings responsible for taking care of people, whether it's putting a roof over their heads, that often isn't done in a coordinated way. It frustrates me to no end when I hear people say they have the sole exclusive jurisdiction over international students. Those students come with money, and when it comes to refugees, that's entirely the federal government's jurisdiction. The hypocrisy there is palpable.
Can I ask you about the incident at the Rainbow Bridge? Is that something that you've been briefed on? There are earlier reports. Do you have any thoughts about what happened?
I can't speculate until we have a more fuller set of details, David. And I've got to get into this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jagmeet Singh was saying that, now they're looking at just getting the pharmacare introduced by end of the year. It seems like the passage still under negotiation. So is that part of the supply and confidence agreement, having that text saying introduced and passed by end of the year? Is that done?
Well, I think the spirit of the agreement was always that we would work towards having something introduced that would show people the path forward. I think what Canadians are interested in is what action we're able to take in this space, particularly recognizing that we have a tight fiscal climate and that cost of drugs is foremost on the minds of so many people who are having to make really tough choices. What they want to see is what action we can come up with, and it's important to get that right. And so, the conversations have been productive. I think we need to give space for those to continue. And I've been saying for some time now that the objective was to introduce legislation, and I think that meets the spirit of the agreement.
Can you do it in this economic climate? Can you bring pharmacare forward? There was the worst case scenario looks like some sort of recessionary thing is coming at the Canadian economy.
Well, look, I think everybody's lived through an incredibly difficult period of time. I mean, we came out of the pandemic, saw a war break out in Europe, economic uncertainty around the world, and that Canada, has done a remarkable job, and Canadians have done a remarkable job weathering all of that. And the fact that we're leading really in so many different categories of our peer nations doesn't feel great when the whole world is down. But the reality is that we're seeing things steadily improve. And that what we have to get at here is solutions to help people with very real problems they have around, can they afford their drugs? And if they don't afford their drugs, what catastrophic outcomes is that going to mean to their health? And what is the cost of that to our health system? So these are the kinds of questions we're navigating, and certainly none of that is blind to the constrained fiscal environment that we're in. That's by necessity why these negotiations are taking time. There's a lot of dynamic factors to consider, and we want to make sure that it's right. And of course, there's still conversations to have with provinces and territories. Thanks so much.
Thank you.